Dun, 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 dun. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our continuing Moon Knight reviews. Very excited to jump into this week's episode. Let's kick things off with our hellos. We got a nice special guest this week from Alyssa Jean's Reviews. It's Alyssa Jean.
Hello, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really super excited to talk about a very interesting show. And I'm going to echo what my brother said last week when he was joining you. We've both been covering Star Trek Picard, and we've both been chomping at the bit to talk about an actually good show. So I'm really excited. So thanks for having me.
Really glad to help people out. You guys have helped us out when we've been in tight spots. So, Expanse reviews, yay. So, yeah, very, very happy to do that. And of course, joining us as always, our very own Tyler Durden from Smirking Reviews. Hey, Tyler, what's up?
Hey, everybody. I got real tired making soap at the Paper Street Soap Company, and I decided to come in today and talk about Moon Knight. And it's really good to have Alyssa here, and let's just jump right into it.
Excellent, excellent. And of course, we got some excellent people joining us live in the
Yeah,
chat.
we do.
Silva Surfa driving for the first part of their show. Drive safe out there, Silva. And yes, join in the chat when you can safely do so. Bill Casey jumping in. Holy crap, this episode. Yeah, Bill, we agree with you. The Rich Room in as well. Very excited to see you. And Lady Shadow Saber, how you doing? Perfect. So, yeah, let's dive into this week. And of course, since Alyssa is joining us, Alyssa, what have you thought about the series so far? I don't know if you've known much about Moon Knight going in, if you're all very fresh with this. So, kind of give us your catch up so far and then dive into what you thought about this episode, which was very emotional.
Yeah. So I knew who Moon Knight was. I had read some Moon Knight comics years and years ago, and I didn't really remember much about him. I remember I used to always get Moon Knight confused with a DC hero named Spectre because they both had hoods by my memory, and then there's Marc Spectre, and I used to get them mixed up in my head. So I remember who Moon Knight was, but I didn't really know anything about him coming in to this, and I was kind of blown away. I think that this is, well, it's hard to say where it ranks amongst all the other Disney Plus shows until it's finished, but it certainly has captivated my attention more than any other since Loki or WandaVision. And I'm really digging it. It's something that's really unique to the MCU. Oscar Isaac is killing it. He's just so good. I mean, I've always liked Oscar Isaac as an actor, but he's up another level for me now after this show. Loving Ethan Hawke, even though I feel like he's turning more into Nick Nolte as he gets older. He reminds me so much of Nick Nolte, like with that raspy voice. But I'm loving him, and such an interesting story. And yeah, very unique for the MCU. And as for this episode, oh my god, yeah, I definitely agree with the sentiments that have already been expressed here. That what an episode, very emotional episode, and I think an amazing character sketch, especially since they're doing a character sketch of two characters, yet they're doing a character sketch of one character, because it's all kind of connected. And I just absolutely love it. The one thing I was maybe slightly disappointed in is that I thought we might get more of a reveal of that third altar that's been hinted at and hinted at. Thought maybe that would come in this episode. And I'm curious how it seems like they have a lot to do in the finale. And I feel like that's often the case with MCU Disney Plus shows. So I'm curious how. I feel like they have to pay that off because they've really set that up and they've got a lot to do. So I'm very curious as how they're going to wrap this thing up next week. But just as far as this week, that would probably be my only slight disappointment is that I was hoping we might get something with that. But other than that, just wow, what an incredible episode. Like I was riveted from start to finish.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I agree. That's one thing ending this episode. I first thought was like, wow, you guys got a lot of territory to cover for our final bit. As usual, we're like, make it more than an hour, make it an extra long episode. Give it, give it, give it. But Rob, what about you? What did you think about this week, especially kind of the weird spot we felt we were in at the end of last week's episode? How did you thought that this sort of paid off what we were setting up?
Pretty much what she said. I mean, the only thing that really was missing was that Jake Lockley payoff, and then the questions of how are they going to pace the last episode to tie everything together, because and they have a history of doing this, of like where you just kind of go, how the heck are they gonna pull this all off in one more episode? And they usually don't even make them that long, not really extra long. They just somehow do it.
Right.
And with the kind of the feedback that people got from like the bad taste that I feel like more is popping up from the end of Hawkeye, I think they really need to deliver. But this episode was really fantastic and really hard for me to get through, because this has been a crazy few months, and this, like, I'm pretty emotionally drained already. So going into this episode, getting all of this like heavy, stuff that deals with childhood trauma, stuff that's really close to me, that it not the exact specifics, of course. I didn't create a split personality or anything, but it is just it got really emotional to watch, because it just brings up a lot of stuff that if you went through like any kind of situation like this, it hit. And with Oscar, you're always going to get great acting, and he just keeps bringing it here. And I even, I've been as the episodes have gone along, I've been a vocal proponent of like, I'm sick of Steven, but they really worked. It really worked here, because they gave us, they found balance, but
Right.
boy, to get balance, a lot of things happened, and that was without Jake getting involved. So, and with that ending, holy, I don't even know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, I can kind of guess, but I'm not going to.
Well, there was one thing that was I did really appreciate what they've focused on here, is finding that balance between Steven and Marc, and that it involved opening up and trusting. And here, how we actually have Harrow being a helpful hand, kind of being that outside force to help you to look in and to force, and how the individuals popped up in his office. And then when we were in with Taweret and on the boat and the Duat, that's when you could see both of the personalities kind of interacting, and how they did that sort of jumping forth as a protective standpoint. Really, I think just a wonderful visual and emotional exploration of trauma and how we react to it, and how some things, again, as much as the loss of his brother ended up being in the formation of Steven, we find later on, how much he's hiding really the trauma with his mom and her death, how that was a larger kind of impact more than other things. So sometimes what you think is going to be the more traumatic one, it isn't the one that really has those bigger effects. And I really enjoyed how they explored that and played with the duality. I did want to ask one question, and I'm actually glad that we're in a state where I can ask this pretty clean, because I want to start off with that first discussion in Harrow's office, because he kind of gives us a little bit of those framework. I was talking about, was it an organizing principle, and that an insane asylum might be the organizing principle, how their brain is sort of setting things up to deal with these issues, which sort of plays out throughout the rest of the episode. But there was some really interesting stuff happening with Marc in that discussion. And Alyssa, I want to start off with you. What did you feel about that first scene? How his little character, because he kind of went from a listening space to a bit of a crazy space. And I'm curious what you thought on that.
To be honest, I was thinking we were getting some Jake slipped in there, and like,
That's exactly what I wanted
but
to touch on.
yeah,
Thank you.
but, and you know, I've seen other videos where they kind of talk about how he mysteriously has that scratch on his nose that we don't really know how that got there. I don't know. Yeah, it was certainly the doctor character, whatever you want to call him, was if it's Dr. Harrow or whatever, was certainly treating that person as if it was Marc, and then they bring in Steven a little later. But it was definitely odd behavior. And there's different, I haven't obviously been here talking with you guys earlier, but there's been different scenes throughout the series where Marc just seems to be a little bit off. There's even one that was pointed out to me by another YouTube video that he has a little bit of a different accent in an earlier episode where there might be some hints of Jake popping in there. So that was my thought. And that was, again, why I was a little bit disappointed we didn't actually get that reveal this episode, because I kind of thought that that's where they really were going with it.
And then they sort of
then they sort of went, but maybe that's not at all what they meant, but that's what I was thinking as I was watching it, for sure.
Yeah, well, because that's exactly what I wanted to get onto, because it did strike me very quickly, like, your mannerisms and your accent just changed. And we didn't get the eye roll back bit, and it was definitely Marc that he was speaking with, because he mentions it in the following scene, like, this is an organizing principle because we're crazy and so on. So he was there for that discussion with Harrow. But I'm wondering if this was our first look at Jake, and if maybe Jake's particular manifestation makes him aware of everyone else. He's aware of Steven and Marc, because he would seem to be able to access some of their memories and be a little bit more aware of what's going on. Anyway, but just...
It seems that way, but it also seems like Marc is not aware of him at all.
Well, that's exactly it. And I think that might be the odd thing, which to me was the surprise when we had the end kind of, heart balanced. We haven't even met this third personality. So maybe that nothing is hidden from this third personality. It is aware of all of these things. And maybe he's the protector. There's something that, see if I can find in my notes here, that was mentioned later on. I think it was another one of Harrow's mentionings about struggling for the mind to build places to seek shelter from traumatic experiences, how he introduces the organizing principle, and it's in the scene that we're talking about, that Steven's created to protect, to kind of have a safe childhood place, to not experience the trauma and stuff that Marc had to go through. So we can kind of get where those two protections are. But here in the beginning, when they're both scared by this hippopotamus creature popping out of nowhere, I just find it interesting that maybe Jake is the one that protects both of them when it becomes too much for either of them to deal with. And that means he's kind of the awareness protector, like, I only got to come out when things get really bad. And if you see me, stuff's going to be in trouble. I'm doing my bad New York accent because that seems to be what he's doing in there. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there and see what your guys' thought did we just see Jake? Is this something that we're going to explore? Or is this kind of going to be kind of the little hint, like, okay, we know you wanted to see him, but he's going to be a season 2 thing, or he's going to be later on, or I don't know. I feel like they have to deal with him.
Yeah, they do. And that makes a lot of sense to me, of Jake as the protector. As long as he's not, it doesn't turn out like he's the real personality like a certain other show did. I don't want to spoil if you haven't seen it, but Darren knows what I'm talking about. I did not really love that. And this other particular show that also deals with similar issues. But yeah, I that makes a lot of sense to me. And I do think we need to see him next episode. I don't think it should be a season 2 thing. I wasn't even sure if there's going to be a season 2. So I think he needs to come out next episode.
Excellent. I agree. Any other thoughts there before we move on, Tyler?
If you were watching my face during this part of the conversation, I didn't pick up on any of the stuff that you guys were talking on while I was watching it until you said it. And then I was like, oh, okay. Like the thing on his nose and everything. I really hadn't picked up on it. And since he's going back from, American to English, I just didn't catch it. But it makes sense. It tracks. And like we have said that, like, if Steven doesn't have the, if Steven didn't know who killed those guys, then who did it? And it has to be Jake. Then what brings out Jake? And it probably is something that when things get so bad they can't deal with it, then yeah, this third personality comes out. And since they've deviated quite a bit from what Stephen Grant is, pretty much completely, Stephen Grant is a different character than the comics. I don't even know what Jake's going to be, because Jake's supposed to just be the New York cab driver. The like we've said, the guy who gets the info on the street about the crime and who to take out and all that. I'd like to know. I think who probably has a really good understanding of who Jake is probably Khonshu.
Yeah,
and I would think that Khonshu's probably held this information back from Marc. So I would think that if there is going to be this big reveal at the end of this season, I think that they're going to have to restructure the deal with Khonshu a little bit here. Of like, you can't keep stuff from us if you want us to keep working with you. And if they get bouncing, that's the other thing, is if we were spending a lot of time hoping that these characters would be in balance, but I don't see how they can be by the end if we introduce a third personality at the end. Then we're back out of balance, aren't we? Mostly because, again, structuring the finale and the pacing of it all, they'll reveal it, but I don't think we're going to get many answers. It'll probably be literally like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a post-credit scene, or literally the very last thing, like, who's that? I'm Jake. I could literally see the show ending with that, which would drive the internet absolutely bananas.
That would be a little much.
It's interesting what you said about the scales, though, because as I was watching the episode and seeing the scales, I thought the way to balance the scales was to find Jake. Like, that's what I was thinking the whole time, is that, once they get that third personality, then they'll be whole, and then they'll be able to balance the scales. But that's not at all what they were doing.
Yeah. No, they did go in an interesting direction on that one. Well, let's get into the scales, or even more to the point, our lovely hippo goddess Taweret. Again, new character, very much fits, I think, the Marvel mode. Yeah, just having her just pleasant, just glad to see somebody. It's been a while. Alyssa, what did you think of Taweret, and kind of really her whole little bit? Let's kind of open this up, because this deals with not only just her presentation. We start talking about other afterlives. I mean, we get into some really interesting ideas here.
Yeah, we get a reference to the ancestral planes, which I thought was a pretty, just reminded us, yes, we actually are in the MCU, because there's not a lot of connections to the greater MCU. So yeah, I enjoyed this character. I at first was like, well, she's a little bit silly how she's like having cards and kind of stumbling through it, but it actually worked. It actually really worked for me. Just kind of how a little bit silly she was, but I don't know. I actually really enjoyed this character quite a lot. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about her after she pops up at the very end of last episode going, hi.
Yeah.
Like, that's a little weird, but I think she worked in the role as kind of the guide, and kind of telling the characters what they need to do, and then also providing a little bit of levity in the episode, which was otherwise a pretty intense episode. So yeah, I enjoyed this character.
Yeah, I think she worked well for balance. And yeah, just a nice little off the cuff. Oh yeah, there's other afterlives and worlds and things like that in the Wakanda land and all those things. We don't need to touch on it anymore. I mean, that kind of opens a big portal of possibilities as an over the shoulder, like almost throwaway line, which I thought was very cool. Rob, what about you? What did you think of our hippo goddess and her introduction into and guide through the Duat?
Well, at least she wasn't wearing a tutu, like and doing ballet like Fantasia or something like that, you know? 'Cause that's the thing I thought of was the Fantasia hippos. But I know I really liked it because it explains it helps the audience understand that, like, you know, you've got the alien Asgardian gods, you know, they're
Mm-hmm.
but here on Earth this is the representation, and we haven't seen this before, and they get to kind of, you know, I was giving the show a little bit of guff about when did the gods ever give a crap about the mortals and things like that, but they really do get to just kind of write their own universe here and how they
Mm-hmm.
want to deal with the gods and everything. And so part of what I said just doesn't really matter. They can take it in any direction they want. And I like that this person is kind of she's rooting for them, but in the end, she's also kind of ambivalent and indifferent of the results. She's hoping that you can, you know, you balance the scales, but she's had, you know, she's watched probably so many people get tossed over the side that she can, you know, she's probably numb to it all. But also it is a god, so it's not really a she or a he, is it? So but they still needed to make it I think they wanted to make it friendly for the audience, and a hippo is as good a choice as any, I guess. It was a little silly, but again, we talked about the random bullshit go, and this nothing more random than a hippo busting out papyrus and telling you, like, these are the rules of the Egyptian underworld. So why not?
Give me a little bit of a Beetlejuice feel there. You know,
Yeah,
pulling up
yeah.
number 938. Okay,
Oh,
hold on.
my
I got
God. I
something
would
for
have
you.
loved to have seen like the handbook for the recently deceased all of a sudden show up.
Or if you just saw a sandworm in the distance over the
Yeah.
Duat there, just going in. Oh yeah,
Sandworms. I hate those
And
guys.
nice, Rob. Um, yeah, I really love that. Love that weird things. Yeah, was it no unbalanced souls on my boat? Them's the rules. Fingers crossed for you guys, eh? Really hoping for you.
How do you get those hooves to
Yeah.
do that?
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so basically, this is what clues them in. This is the time where you have to go and do your big personal reveal, open up your self exploration, that internal balance, which will allow you to enter the field of dreams, reads, and live wonderfully forever. Okay, so we have our happy person who gives us our little joyful, silly balance. And that's obviously necessary in this episode because we hit some really traumatic moments. And again, the first door that Stephen kind of finds and questions out is the Shiva. And that's not the first door we go in. That's the one that Marc seems to be hiding the most, even from, well, we get to see the dead, and Marc's kind of way of doing that. See, to me, that was where you start to get really an interesting thing, where you start to see of Stephen's judgment of Marc, and not only is it just Marc showing Stephen the stuff that he's hidden from him, but in a way, it's Stephen looking past his assumptions of Marc, his assumptions of himself, to see the person and human there. The fact that the first thing we see is Dubai, Gabon, New York. You try killing someone and see if you forget them. I mean, it was just and they didn't spend a lot of time on it, but I thought it was a beautiful way to sort of open things up, almost a slap in the face to Stephen, like, we're talking real stuff, not, cops and robbers things. What did you think of that before as we start to dive into the past, not only just this, but then, of course, the boy that leads Stephen into this room and leads him into the darker part of his past?
Well, the first thing that I thought of was something that they always say, but I don't know if we've ever really seen too often, which is the idea of that if you kill somebody in life, they're there when you get to the afterlife. those of you and sometimes they talk about them being your slave, but that is not the case here. And I love that kind of idea of like that you have to face what you did and who you took out or hurt or whatever. And we knew that we were going to have to deal with the trauma that caused the split for Steven to come forward and for him to believe that he's the prime. I thought that the way that they were dealing with all that Marc is really trying to protect Steven here, not the other way. Like it, it shows that he cares about this part of himself that isn't real enough to try to brace him for it and try to explain it without showing it and running after the kid, all these things. Like he can take Steven yelling at him and because he knows everything that he did. And the whole, I mean, I don't know how far we're going into this, but like going after the kid and the whole cave thing. I mean, that's a very Disney thing. I mean, it's usually the mom that dies, and we do get that does happen. But usually the trauma is a parent going, not a brother or sister. And this, it's powerful because we also think that that's the only thing, right? I mean, it's all these layers of trauma that Marc has suffered, that he's buried, and it's not just you can see, I guess, the reason he became a mercenary, right? And he talks about, like that he's like he's killed already. He'd had, he'd had it put into his head that he's a killer. And so like Steven always acts like this was easy, that you're just a killer. He always talks about him like like it's black and white, and because murder is bad, of course. But I love how they've been managing to reveal like we seem like Steven seems more like the open book and Marc is the one that has to have everything peeled back, but they give both of them so many things to peel back for both of those characters to figure out about themselves. And this is just that first part.
Well, yeah, because you're right. That's the thing. This is a huge thing, and it is just the first part of this sort of story and onion we're unpeeling. Alyssa, what did you think? Not only again just the bodies, the people that Marc has had to kill. I mean, Khonshu seems to be connected to a lot of these faces, but then also again that first deep layer of trauma, the loss of Roro.
Yeah, I mean, this is clearly all things that Marc did not want Steven to see. And, even just that first layer of Steven seeing these dead bodies, he already, kind of knew that Marc was a killer and was really, not pleased with Marc being a killer, always telling him not to. He talked to him through the mirror and say, "Don't do it, Marc." So Marc didn't want Steven to see this, and Marc, as we go through the episode, Marc doesn't want Steven to see any of this because the whole point of Steven's existence is he is supposed to be ignorant of all of this.
Yes.
Otherwise, what is the point of Steven? He created Steven to be the part of him who thinks his mom is wonderful and is still alive and was a good mother, and where he's not a killer and none of these horrible things exist. So that kind of gets undermined if Steven is learning these things. He is not supposed to learn these things. That's the whole existence of it. So it's interesting to watch how resistant Marc is all throughout this episode, trying to keep Steven from seeing these things. Because, Steven seeing these things is a huge game changer because he's not supposed to. That's his whole point, the whole point of his existence. So, yeah, I found that all really interesting. But Steven, of course, he wants to know, like he wants to learn the truth. He doesn't want to just go around being this, happy-go-lucky, ignorance is bliss type of person. Like he needs to know the truth. So yeah, as we will I'm sure, talk more about it as we move through the episode and peel off some of the layers. I just found that that aspect really interesting, watching Marc trying to prevent Steven from learning what he doesn't want him to know, and when Steven really needing to learn it.
Yeah, and then ultimately what we find out is this is, in a way, it's not even just so much Steven learning about it, but Marc facing it himself. Because obviously Marc knows all of these things. There's no hidden truth within him, but he's not accepting and really peering and, in many ways forgiving himself. So yeah, again, just the layers, how they really kind of got into this. I really love. I also love the fact that they very clearly settled up the whole Jewish question. Yes, he's Jewish. He's in a Shiva. He's got the whole thing. Even later on, when he peeled off and yelled at his yarmulke, which is so upset that he like grabs it and pulls it in. I mean, we can obviously see how much this is part of his character, and I love how that it was just dealt with. Which means, folks, let's not judge things before we see them. Let's not judge rumors of what it's going to be. Wait until we see the product, and then you can judge it. Okay. Now we did get, which was kind of an unexpected little bit. Oh, yeah, the line we had in here. You weren't meant to see that. That's why you exist. I love all these things. This little first conflict here with the realization of Roro's death and Steven Marc walking away from his family is our origin, which I wasn't sure if we were really going to fully see. And God, they did it in such a cool way, as a way of exploring again these mental traumas and the effects of it. And even here we can have Steven judging Marc. Oh, of course I'd see you killing all these. Of course it is. And you can see Steve or Marc just opening up like, try to do it, man. I mean, hey, going AWOL in a fugue state kind of gets you kicked out of the military. What are you gonna do? Oh no, I was a British guy for a while. Sorry about that. I need to get that filled out on my cards. Yeah, you can see where this lifestyle would lead to a lot of complications, and Marc having to kind of figure out a way to stay alive. And I love how this kind of got tied into it. It's the state of Marc that constantly kept putting him in these positions where he could honestly be taken advantage of, which was the great thing that we saw and that Steven saw. Alyssa, what were your thoughts of our seeing the deal that Khonshu made? The dick. He's a dick.
I thought it was very interesting that Steven, I think this is the first time where Steven kind of feels bad for Marc, because before he was like, oh, you're such a killer, you're a horrible person, and he's very judgy of him. And then when he finally sees this, he's like, oh, Khonshu has been taking advantage of you from the beginning. So now he's starting to feel sorry for Marc and starting to understand more why Marc has done some of the things he's done. So yeah, I thought it was a really great scene. And I watched another video where they pointed out, and I hadn't thought of this, but I really love this idea, that we don't actually see what Khonshu looks like at first. And that there's this scene earlier when they're running to the cave where he steps on this bird bones or something, and it looks like Khonshu. So that's not actually what Khonshu looks like, but that's how it manifested for Marc, because he was associating it with that day when he, his brother died. So that there's this memory of these bird bones that he stepped on, and that's kind of how Khonshu manifested to Marc, but that's not necessarily what Khonshu would look like. So I found that really interesting as well. I don't know if that's true, but I like that theory a lot.
Sure.
But I think this is a really great origin scene, and I appreciate again that we did not get this in episode 1, and this has always been my favorite thing about the one of my favorite things about the MCU's version of Spider-Man, where we never had to get the repeat of the origin story that we've seen a gazillion times in the Uncle Ben death. And I always appreciate it when Marvel can introduce a character without starting with the origin story, because that is just so trite and cliche and overdone, and I've seen it a million times. So introducing it here and in this way, as they're unpacking their trauma together, and Steven coming to this realization that, well, Marc's been taken advantage of. It's not really his fault. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Excellent, excellent. I just wanted to make one quick little note here. Bill Casey makes a great mention in the chat here. The show's not, Marc here is not dissimilar from Peacemaker, which also had a brother's death and a resentful parent. Excellent little point. Excellent point. That's very true. Rob, what did you think of our origin reveal? Again, I wasn't expecting it, but I think beautifully presented to sort of illuminate Steven.
It's definitely a different perspective than a more unique perspective on the origin of it, because that's, events from Moon Knight #1. And Moon Knight #1, we see it all happening. We see the execution of this hostages and marketing going in there, but and doing basically kind of a Ghost Rider deal, right? That we've seen done before.
Right.
And they don't go into all the why, it just is. And so that was a very interesting perspective of showing the origin through Steven's eyes, being guided along this as Marc, kind of shoves his way through memories, pushing him into this room and into that room, or don't go into this. Like it's very kind of violent in a way of like, ugh. Like, all right, here it is. Like, I also I do like the thought of him putting together the bones in his head of this is what I associate that with. That's a really interesting perspective, because it also could kind of like how the suit changes when Steven wears it.
Yeah.
Like, the different perspectives of everyone. Like maybe that hippo isn't a hippo to everybody. Just like it's not always an asylum either. It's whatever that person projects on it. So a lot of this stuff is up to, I think, each person's mind. And that's one of the greatest things about this whole series is just that whole idea that they've gone off on and showing different perspectives and how people see things. Just really, really cool. And just, it's great. See, I really want more Moon Knight in my Moon Knight show. But this was a really cool, reveal of all of that. And they did mention Bushman. So we know that's who was, we have confirmation. We just didn't get the actor, anybody playing it. And then honestly, because of the way that they've structured this, we don't really need him. Again, they could probably save that for some other season if they felt like revisiting that character. Not revisiting, but introducing him in a different way. Maybe he's got more connection to Jake than we know, but yeah, all really cool.
Excellent. There's one thing that a line from our Dr. Harrow character that gave in last week's episode that's really sort of kept ringing in my head, especially when you were talking so much about perceptions and how everything really is a perception and how we manifest it. He mentioned something like, we don't live in a physical world, we live in a psychic world. Because everything is being processed in through our minds. We can't physically think. We're getting light waves, which are then going through our brain and so on. Our perception is very dependent upon how we are processing the information that we are given. And that does make things so very subjective, and you can get so much play within perception and things like that. It's just one of those things, again, the line that kind of was mentioned last week that sort of has played over and over as I saw this particular episode, since we're dealing so much with perceptions and hidden forces and things like that. Now, after this, of course, we do get our little shock back to the Duat, where we now have untethered souls raining down into the desert, because Harrow is doing some nasty stuff. Now, has Amit been caught? Is this the beginnings of that? Is this just him going through the followers? Is this sacrifices to bring her up? We don't know. we're probably going to have to learn that next week when we find out what the heck's been going on with Layla. But it does give a nice immediate pressure on this, not only to Taweret to like, hey, you got to get us back off to Osiris, which I love because I believe it was his avatar, which is the one that kind of was believing Harrow, if I'm not incorrect. We not only have that, but we have a wonderful scene following how how Marc is still trying to hide from Steven. It's not worth it. And I love this bit, how Steven's like, the world's about to end. Layla could be killed. All these people could die. It's not I mean, if you're going to talk about something that's hidden deep within the psyche, saying that, risking the end of the world's okay as long as I don't have to look in that inner closet right there. A beautiful way to kind of like set up the intensity of this. And before I turn this over to you, I gotta admit, look, when they're in the room and the look on Marc's face, and Oscar Isaac, I know we've been saying this from the beginning. We've been saying constantly how amazing he is in this. Even rewatching it, I just looked at the pain and stuff going on in his face as Steven is kind of like in the front exploring, like, oh my God, what is all of this? And Marc's in the back, just like, you can see his soul being ripped out as he watches these scenes go on. It was just, I'm sorry, I'm not mean to blow Oscar Isaac right here, but the guy's amazing. Okay, and I'm gonna admit that. Who wants to go first? Anyone want to tackle this? This our kind of our big reveal on the formation of Steven.
Yeah, I'll start. I didn't actually catch. I was focused on Steven and the scene, so that's a good catch. I didn't really actually catch his facial expressions there from Marc, and so that's really interesting. Yeah, and again, I think it's not only that he has to face this; he's reliving this. He remembers it, but Steven finding out, like the whole point of Steven is he's not supposed to know this, which means Steven finding out means that Marc truly has to face this fully. So yeah, that's really cool that you point out his facial expressions and that, because I didn't even catch that, because that's really powerful. It was an extremely, I almost want to say overwhelming scene, like just really really emotional. And someone brought up the Peacemaker earlier, but I was actually, not to bring up Picard again, but I just did a review for an episode of Picard where they also tried to do this childhood trauma thing, and they did it so poorly, and I just don't care about it. So it's interesting. I watched 2 episodes back to back that tackled the childhood trauma, and there's one that's a case study of how to do it poorly, and one that's really a case study of just how you can just overwhelm your audience with emotion. Like there was so much going on in that scene that I didn't even catch the facial expressions for Marc that you're talking about. Already there was just so much to overwhelm you. So I've only watched the episode once, so I'll have to go back and do my second viewing and see if I can pick up on that. But yeah, there's just a lot going on there. Steven finding out, and then Marc having to accept that Steven is finding out, so which means he has to fully accept it now, and just seeing that scene as for the first time as us in the audience, like seeing what Marc went through, so much.
Yeah, and then being yanked out before it even got to the worst parts. Rob, what about you? Any thoughts on just the constant gut punch that this show's doing to our emotions?
Well, like I said, I have a mother who rejected me for different reasons, and it was really hard to watch because it hits you right where you live, and that kind of stuff you wish you could just put, I've had to push a lot of that stuff down myself, and just to get through life. and having to watch that and him wanting to see and knowing what's happening, it's really tough stuff. And I don't know, I have a hard time like really discussing this part of it.
Sure. Well,
Because
of
it's
course.
just you have to, you know, like in order to heal, you have to face some of this stuff, and it's tough when I feel like when I think I'm over it, I see this stuff and it brings it back, and I realize, you know, I'm not, you know, I don't know if you ever get over it.
No.
And so you can just see why some people, when this happens, have those breaks, and everything they do to protect themselves and put the walls up, and therapy doesn't always work, and therapy is hard, and you're faced, you know, in his case, he's having a therapy with, you know, Ned Flanders' Harrow, which was a great line, by the way. Great moment of levity for that. And to kind of also comment on Ethan Hawke being the really a good kind of voice in this of actual, I want to help you. He's there to help you because he's just in Marc's mind.
Yeah.
This version is just in Marc's mind. This is the version that he, you know, he could be, you know, like at some point the voice of the guy who was the Avatar, trying to be helpful, trying to get them to open up to each other. Because I think that was kind of, there is this, you could say that Harrow's obsession with trying to understand the chaos of Marc might have even kind of put that idea in his head that this guy is trying to get to the heart of me. And so in his mind palace, he's actually helping him.
Yeah.
Even when those guys, the mental projections of the other people are trying to hold him down, he's being very like, don't hurt him. We, you know, like we're just trying to get through all these things. And just seeing, you know, like if you ever have a parent tell you that it's all your fault, and you know, it's so sad. It's just, and then, you know, like we haven't even gotten to like him facing her death, which is just another crack in this person. And it's just a lot. It's a lot. And they did not pull their punches, and they did not, I got to give them, the filmmakers and Disney, credit for doing this, going this far.
Yeah.
Trusting the audience can handle it, even if it might trigger some people.
Well, and certainly popping up in the chat, a few people mentioning the exact same things, how they've been able to deal with such topics that they haven't veered away. We even have people that have also dealt with childhood abuse here, and know how real that was. And you're right, that is something that you aren't expecting, which that they will actually go in and deal with this and not really pull the punches. Yeah, you get a Ned Flanders little line, and you get some moments of levity to try and even things out. But just that bit, I mean, not only how of all of the traumas, the loss of mom is the one that got Steven to freak out to the point to pop up in the Harrow office to deal with the one-on-one kind of opening up. But how they dealt with that. Oh, we'll just get her on the phone. No, we got the number. Oh, no, she's right here. Treating as if, you're right, she's alive, so that it's Steven that has to personally peel back those internal blockages to admit it on his own.
And how this version of Harrow keeps kind of rolling with, like, how in past episodes he wasn't like this.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting water thrown in his face, and he's being questioned as a doctor, and he still just keeps giving him positive, like real therapy. Just really, really fantastic that they're dealing with this like we're all grown-ups, and that they know kids are watching.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably kids in this audience that are like gonna go and think about things, you know, and I don't know. I think maybe it can, in some ways, especially if you're young and you hear somebody, you know, a character that you like or something you identify with, dealing with something that you're dealing with, maybe it's gives you a little bit of, I don't know, hope, but I don't know, or help to get help or whatever, or maybe it starts some conversations that need to happen.
Well,
And while some people might not like that a show is maybe talking to your kids a little bit about tough subjects, well, yeah, tough shit.
Well, if they're gonna tackle this at all, they need to go all out. Like otherwise, it's like go big or go home. Like, what is the point? Like, so I really, appreciate that they went all in on this, because if they're gonna tackle a subject, because if you're going to have those tough conversations, if you want to start, maybe start a conversation, you're really going to have to go head on with this topic. And it was even hard. I mean, I can only imagine what was like for Rob or for Wes in the chat, where you've actually had those experiences, because myself not really having experience like that is still difficult to watch. I mean, I have worked in education for a while. I've worked with a lot of students who have been a victim, abuses of, or victims of child abuse in their past. So I've kind of dealt with it a lot secondhand, and it just even, just even not having experience in myself, it really hit me hard. But I think it needed to. Like, I don't think there's really, much point in even tackling the subject at all if you're not going to really hit the audience hard. So I actually really appreciate that they did it this way.
Yeah. No. I completely agree. And what is it that birthed Stephen? When danger is near, Stephen Grant has no fear.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I mean, it was tragic. It was just another like glass of bucket of water to the face for that character to find out that he's not the prime. Like if you can blow a figment of your imagination's mind, like, I mean, we all knew an episode prior that this had happened, and so I didn't really think about how this would affect that character at all, and why he would then want to see it all, because it's like, if this is why I'm here, then I want to really see and feel it all. But Marc's like, there's some things you don't want. You think you want it, but you don't.
Yeah.
But maybe you need it. I don't know. Maybe that's what they needed. But can I jump back real quick, Darren? You had mentioned before about Stephen discovering about his mom. I love that too, because we go back to I don't know if it was the very first scene, but in the very, very beginning of episode 1, he's talking to his mom on the phone, and you don't hear the mom's voice. And if you knew anything about the show going in, you kind of already know about the DID and all of that stuff. And you're I'm thinking this mom is probably not real, even then. But obviously, it was real to Stephen, and he talks to her quite a lot in the first episode. And then to kind of circle back around to that, and for Stephen to get that phone, and here, talk to your mom, and go, oh, she's dead. I mean, it was a really powerful. Really powerful moment, one of many in this episode.
Yeah, and the fact that this is part of Marc's makeup is that he's got the gene. Like, his mother is clearly not just grieving.
Right.
She's unwell already. She was already sick, and this just made it all worse. And it's hard enough if somebody does something to you. It's bad enough when somebody does something to you and there's nothing wrong with them. I mean, I think there's always something wrong with somebody who can do that to a child, but some people, you think they're just mean or malicious, and knowing that this is also part of why this happened to him. It wasn't just because his brother died. And it just adds that extra layer of tragedy that's just like, Like, oh my gosh. Even, like by the end of this episode where it ends, I'm like, that is not hopefully the intended way that this ends for the character, like that's a real downer.
Well, and
It
even in
was,
some ways, the episode opened. One of the first things that Marc says at the beginning when he realizes he's dead, he's like, "Why are we here? Because we're crazy. That's why we're crazy." I mean, that was kind of the first thing of like looking at Steven like, "Okay, well, look, we got to admit it. We're in a mental hospital because we're nuts." Not really the case, but that's, I think, again, part of what you're mentioning, Marc's thing of like, I've been trying to push this away, and maybe this is the fact that I'm not just this happening guy is part of his journey. Alyssa?
I was just gonna say, I don't know what Rob was saying, that not only did, it's not just about him killing his brother, but then there's the whole other layer. Because I would imagine that even without the mom's reaction that way, if the mom was completely supportive and telling him, "Oh, it's not your fault," you're still likely to blame yourself for that
Yeah.
in that situation. So even if both of his parents have been completely supportive, he's probably going to live with that for the rest of his life. He's probably going to feel guilt. He's probably going to feel like he's at fault for it. But then to have on top of that, to have the mom reaffirming what he probably already believes himself, yes, this was your fault. And then on top of that, abusing him. I mean, no wonder he created Steven. Like, I mean, it's like, oh, that's why he has DID. I mean, because that is some serious shit. That is like multiple layers of trauma all at once. Like, even just one layer of that would be traumatic for any normal human being. But to go through all of those different layers, that's just even hard to imagine.
Yeah. Silva mentioning here in the chat, OG Marvel Comics always treated kids with respect and taught them. Read Demon the Bottle, the Tony Stark alcoholism arc, when he was 5. So, yeah, comics and these shows can be a way for children to be able to see things in a way. I mean, we talk often about representation, and it's often, racial or sexuality or belief systems or any type of things like that. Well, this applies in all types of things. When people can see characters going through issues that they may have some similarity to, and see them have troubles with them and yet still be able to find ways to overcome them, it is what helps other people who are also in those positions go, "Oh, and Tony Stark, I love Tony Stark, and he had a problem with alcohol, and he was able to get past it." It's cheesy, yeah, but sometimes that's what people need. Little kids need to see their heroes go through stuff that they do. They need to see heroes that are similar to them, to go through things similar to them, and that's what can inspire people. And ultimately, that's what all these stories are: is to help inspire kids to explore, to do right things, to expand. I really appreciate how they're definitely dealing with these. So, having faced our traumas, alas, still don't have a balanced heart, which leads to a very interesting whole setup. And I think one of my favorites little bits is the realization that the two are not separate. When Steven is looking over and Marc's getting pulled back, and he's like, "You got this, but I'm you. So I got this too." And to me, it's like, this is the victory of the episode. Because in a way, they do become one. There's the acceptance of the one person. We are not different. We are not separated. We are the same, which is probably something we could expand to a lot of things here for the world to examine. And of course, we still get our great little fight scene. We get some great action and a final emotional gut punch. Yeah, what did you think there, Tyler, Rob, with our little final fight? And I mean, the ending has got to be spending people's minds.
The fight, because the fight we've seen them.
Yeah.
but the way we leave it, it's just like, how is this a MCU show? You know what I mean? Like this is like, that's the ending of like a Breaking Bad episode, you know, where nothing worked. Everything's bad. Steven's gone, frozen, and I'm in the reeds. And how do you get out of that? You know, like it's just it's just so much that and it just cuts away, and I don't know what we're supposed to feel in that moment other than absolute, like, I mean, if you've watched shows like Lost, you know that like when your character makes growth, that's when you're gonna get it. And I guess the shit has seen it coming, because I honestly thought we'd have some like last second, you know, the doors are open, like, Steven, no, I'm not gonna let you just die down there, you know, I'm gonna do something crazy. And no, it's much more honest, and not everything ends with a happy ending. And what we say a lot of times, that things got to get worse before they get better. And when your main characters are both, you know, both personalities are dead,
it does create a few complications. Next week is Layla.
I need a couple of death saving rolls here, everybody. Death saving rolls. Okay.
Yes, the saving throw. What did he roll? Got to get it critical. Alyssa, what did you think of our
well,
little final reveal and bit? I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Well, when Steven, you know, he gets frozen, and then Taweret is like, "Oh, the scales are balanced now, yay!" And I'm like, "That's what needed to happen." Like, so I mean, which I guess in a way makes sense that in order for Marc to fully kind of face, you know, his trauma, and to deal with it, you kind of have to lose Steven, because Steven's existence was about denial, and not facing the truth. So losing Steven, I guess, means that Marc now has fully faced the truth. But it was it was still rather shocking to me to see it. I'm like, oh my god, he's gone, and now, oh, that's what needed to happen this whole time for the scales to be balanced. And yeah, and then we leave Marc with I love your Field of Dreams reference earlier on. If a baseball player comes out next week, I'm gonna freak out. But yeah, then we leave it there, and then it's like, what's gonna happen next week? How are we wrapping this up? What is going to happen? But I actually love it. I love that feeling of not having any idea. And there is part of me, you know, that is always worried that they won't really stick the landing, or the way that they will connect Marc from the Field of Dreams into somehow getting back into the real world, presumably, and facing off against Harrow or whatever happens. That there's always that fear that they won't really connect those dots really well. But I feel like if the show is good of a quality as has been throughout, that I think they will pull it off. I just have no idea how they're going to do it. Like, I'm just at a loss. So I'm just like, wait, what? This is how it ends? What are they going to do? Like, how are they going to wrap this up? But so I'm actually really, really excited to see what they're going to do after this, leaving it off where they did.
Yeah, if you want to leave a cliffhanger ending, this is how you do it. You kill both named characters, drop them off in heaven and hell, and then, yeah, that's what I say. Next week is all Layla's suicide mission against Harrow. Harrow wins, and we see the beginnings of the fall of the Marvel Universe. It's Mephisto, folks. It's always Mephisto.
There
Okay,
is
well, I
no
did want.
Amit. It's Mephisto all
That's right.
along.
I did want to hit on a couple of things here because as Bill Casey mentions here in the chat, and we talked earlier, worth noting that Osiris rules over the field of reeds, and it was Osiris's avatar that was the one who put Khonshu away. I guess if you're going to appeal to someone, he's the big one to appeal to. Hey, you see all these bodies raining down? Would you like it to stop? Or is he into that? I don't know. It'll be kind of an interesting exploration. But it's only I think we do have the emotional hit from the loss of Stephen there. And I will put loss in quotes here because did we lose Stephen? Stephen is part of Marc. And in fact, that was that final revelation. We saw that after Stephen went overboard, that the scales were balanced. But were they balanced because we lost Stephen or because Stephen accepted the two of them are one? Because ultimately, again, Stephen is a mental manifestation. He hasn't gone anywhere. Really? I mean, unless he can do some sort of personality purge, and that is part of the whole overlay thing, which becomes a whole other bit. And I think that would be sort of a cheap removal of actual dealing with mental illness, which would surprise me considering everything else that they did. But yeah, where do you think? I mean, have we lost? Do you think that this is sort of a loss of Stephen and we've got to see something else? Or is this going to be like he's going to be standing in the field of reeds and suddenly Stephen's going to be next to him going, this is amazing. I've always wanted to say this. Which I think would be kind of a cool little bit. But because you're right, we've got one episode and we've got to get back to life. We got to stop Harrow. We got to stop Amit. We got to get the Moon Knight costume. We got to free Khonshu. It's a lot of stuff. Though I suppose if Osiris is there, he could do both of those like that, right? Is this just going to be like a discussion? Is this how we get back to life? Is we have a debate?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time. I think some things are going to happen in kind of quick succession, but if history of finales goes, about 20 minutes before the end, we're all going to be going, how are you going to get to any of this? Because we're going to spend like the first half making us like just stress. We're going to be like just gripping our hands, bleeding until and that's why speculation drives me crazy, because it's just like Jake's gonna pop out of the sarcophagus and go to the hippo and go, I got this, and he's gonna swing over the side on a rope and grab Stephen and fling him onto the side of the boat and go, next stop, the reeds. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Random bullshit. Go, everybody.
Yeah. There you go.
And you can get this t-shirt at T Public, everyone.
Yeah, actually, let's take a little moment here. Look, folks, Rob has been doing the t-shirt bomb. I mean, he got me this beautiful guy right here. I love him. He's wearing a beautiful random bullshit go, but he's got a couple little things there. Here, we're going to pop you up here all center there, Rob.
Okay.
There you go. Just simple.
And for all of you that have been paying attention to our videos for a long time,
there you go. See, that is the answer to everything.
all on T Public, everyone.
So go check out T Public. We have no link and we can't save you any money. Alyssa, do you have any final thoughts here on where we think where we're going, or is it, like you said, the perfect example? I don't know wherever they're going to take us.
I don't know.
Good.
But I kind of like the not knowing. I'm really excited to find out. I mean, there is, as I mentioned before, there's the part of me that's like prepared to be disappointed, because it does seem like a lot for them to take on in the final episode. How long have these been? 40 minutes, 49,
Yeah,
like
this was, I
45
think,
minutes.
44 minutes was this one. Yeah, Silva's
Yeah.
mentioning the finale is said to be 45 minutes, so it would be right in line with this episode length.
Yeah,
And they did cover a lot.
Yeah, they did. I don't know how they're gonna do it all, but I'm really excited to find out.
Indeed. Oh god, I had something I was going to say and now it's completely lost me. So yeah, small bits there. All right, well I guess that covers everything, folks. Thank you guys so much. We had a wonderful little chat going on here. People really sharing some wonderful stuff. Silva, Wes Sager, always appreciate you, man. The Rich Room, Bill Casey was in here. We had Lady Shadow Saber in for a little bit. Everyone, thank you so much for watching our show. Please be sure to hit like, subscribe, all those things. The notifications, it lets you know when new videos drop out, so you don't miss any of these fun discussions. But let's hit any final thoughts and let's let people know where they can find you. Alyssa, let's start things off with you.
Hi, so I am on Alyssa Jean's reviews. So mostly what I cover is a Star Trek. So if you're into that, I've been struggling through Star Trek Picard. We've got one more week left of that, and then also next week, Strange New Worlds is starting up. So I'm excited about that. I'll be reviewing that weekly. Also, for those of you who may know my brother Marc, he was on this channel last week talking with these guys. He and I are going to do a preview for Strange New Worlds, which premieres next week. We're going to do a preview of it, a little discussion, a little talk. This Saturday, April 30th, it'll be 6 o'clock for me on the West Coast, 9 o'clock for you East Coasters. And so come over to Alyssa Jean's reviews and check that out. It should be a very fun discussion. And I will also be, once Moon Knight is finished up, I will be releasing my review on the entire season. That's kind of how I do Marvel shows. I'll do the whole season at once. So I'm looking forward to talking more about that. And also looking forward to talking with you guys, Darren and Rob, in some future point about Marvel shows. I always love being on here and talking about the MCU with you guys. So, yeah. So check me out, Alyssa Jean's reviews.
Well, and we love having you. And yeah, we're going to be finding a slot because Obi-Wan Kenobi's coming up in about a month, folks. Very excited about that. Rob, any final thoughts, and where can people find you?
I'm here. That's all you need to know. But so I'm gonna save some time so I can show you guys some of the cool comics that I've picked up.
Yeah,
we got this cool Moon Knight issue from Sienkiewicz.
Nice.
Moon Knight number 29. We've got Daredevil number 132. This is the second appearance of Bullseye.
Nice.
Daredevil number 197. The first appearance of Yuriko, who becomes Lady Deathstrike.
Ooh.
First showed up in Daredevil.
Wow.
Ghost Rider number 1 from 1991, I believe. The first appearance of Danny Ketch's Ghost Rider. And, okay, I got a couple of really crazy ones, folks. Uncanny X-Men number 142. The issue Everybody Dies. This is Days of Future Past, part 2. And then going all the way back to 1967, we got Strange Tales, number 157. Doctor Strange, nice. Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. The cameo appearance of the Living Tribunal. So,
man, Rob always with the killer collection.
So that's all. We'll be here next week for the finale. That's all you need to know on my end.
Yeah. And Don Willie should be joining us with our finale right here. Really look forward to Don jumping back in. Can't wait to hear what he's thought of this show. Once again, thanks everyone for watching. Don, I'm D. This is my channel.
I just got to say, Don, if you're watching, you better be here. Because I'm coming to New York if you're not. You got to be here, man. We miss you.
We do miss you, John. We totally miss you. Yeah, I really can't wait to have him back on. So yeah, You guys are, of course, watching my channel. It's Steve's Reviews. We're doing all the Marvel thing. Like I just mentioned, we're going to be doing Obi-Wan Kenobi. Got to figure out how to balance Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ms. Marvel. I'm not really sure what we're going to be doing with that yet because I want to talk about both of them. But we'll figure it out. And again, hit that bell notifications. You'll be told all about it. But we will catch you all next week. Have a great week, and we'll catch